Hi, welcome to Peaceful Montessori Homeschooling. Today we're going to talk about how to raise a genuine child. So, John, what do you think a genuine child is like to you?
Well, and that's the thing. How do we know what a genuine child is like? Well, what's a genuine person like?
Hmm.
Well, they're warm, right? They're open. They're
Honest.
honest. They somebody you want to be around,
They're a very pleasant person to be around because they're sociable and they're engaging.
right?
A lot of good virtues.
Sure.
So,
And so there's a genuineness about them, a
yeah.
trustworthiness,
Hmm.
right? In other words, if they say something, you can believe them.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's what we want to instill in our children
Hmm.
is to be a genuine person.
Yeah, let's talk about Annabelle, like what happened this weekend on her Taekwondo belt test.
Sure.
So you want us kind of say, cause our daughter's a very genuine person.
Oh yeah. One of the
Hmm.
things that she does is she greets everybody. She greets uh, her
Everyone by
classmate,
name.
her classmates by name, the
Hmm.
adults by name, even the parents of her
Hmm.
of the children by name. Um, and so she's not afraid of any conversation with adult or child.
No, and she makes people feel very welcome. She'll see a kid come in and she say, "Hey, come over here, come sit next to me. There's a spot right here."
That's right.
So, and I would say that other kid would be like, "Oh, she's so awesome. She really cares about me. She wants to be with me."
That's true.
So,
But she doesn't stand for children being mean to her or other children.
that's right.
In fact, she'll ignore them,
Hmm.
and that's so she stands up for herself as well.
Exactly.
Um,
What do we see? Oh, well, I want to say about something about Annabelle, about her general personality, because we do raise her peacefully, and so we're going to talk about that later, what that means. Um, she has that freedom to express herself. We always know what she's thinking and what she's feeling because she talks all the time because she has that freedom to express herself, and that's what you want. Because what do we see in other kids today? They're afraid to say anything, and you don't know what they're thinking and what they're feeling.
that's true.
And
And I can spot a child who's not peacefully raised,
mm-hmm,
because generally, if I try to engage them in like in one of our outings, um, they are you'll say something to them
mm-hmm,
and they'll look at you with I don't know what to do
yes.
with this conversation.
Sometimes they
Uh,
look at their parent. It's like, am I allowed to talk to this person?
yes, or like who's this? Are they a teacher? Or are they who are they? When we've like walked in with
Mm-hmm.
their friend, which is our daughter, um, so they don't know how to respond to adults,
Yeah.
and that's kind of an indicator to me that some sort of verbal suppression has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
There's some boundaries there that they know they're not allowed to go outside, of those boundaries. It's like they've been told too many times to be quiet and be still because this is not for you to engage in.
right.
It's like when two adults are talking, children are normally not allowed to engage in that. It's like they're disturbing and interrupting. And to me, it's like, first of all, children don't know how to socialize and they can't rely on their peers because they don't know how to socialize. So they really need to be able to engage adults. They have to have that freedom so that they can learn from us how to socialize and how to engage with people.
If they don't know how to engage with adults now and they're told to be quiet all the time,
Mm-hmm.
what makes you think they're going to be any better off engaging with adults later on?
Exactly. And
Because you go out in the workforce and you're not dealing with just peers, you're dealing with people older and younger and everything else like this. So you need the skills in order to engage with all different types of age groups.
and that's why you have a lot of teenagers being so socially awkward because instead of practicing when they're younger, it's like now they're young adults, and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to practice this now. It's like, no, you're supposed to have been practicing early on, and by the time you're a teenager, you already know how to function.
Right, and they don't get it in public school because
No.
it's another area of suppression.
It is
You're,
an area of suppression.
they're not there to socialize. At least that's what my fourth grade math teacher says. We're not here to socialize.
That's right.
You know, which is strange.
That
So
is strange.
homeschooling, that's one aspect. But even with our homeschooling groups,
Yeah, I want to say that homeschooling is an improvement to kids who are exposed to public school or whatever, but I think it's just not enough. There's more that as parents we need to do to be able to raise a genuine child.
yeah, and in fact, and I want to say one more thing before we get into the aspects of raising.
How you do that. Mhm.
Yes, and one of the things is, you're not, even though you may be homeschooling, if you just mimic what they do in public school, you're not really gaining a lot.
No, you're not, because if you have them at home, you need to have a more a bond.
Right.
You can't just be a stranger again. You have to be someone more than that.
And
than
that's
that.
your opportunity in homeschooling, is to create that bond. That's why we homeschool.
Exactly, because you don't want the children to bond with their peers. That you want them to bond with you.
Correct.
Because you're the one who's going to show them how to be this particular person that you want them to be, and to have the same values you do.
Sure.
So anyway, well, before we get carried away, let's
Yes.
talk about how do you raise a child to be genuine. So we're going to talk about some terminology. First one is mirroring. Okay, so here we pulled out what mirroring is in psychology. Mirroring is a behavior in which one person subconsciously imitates the gesture, speech pattern, or attitude of another. Mirroring often occurs in social situations, particularly in the company of close friends or family. The concept often affects other individuals' notions about the individual that is exhibiting mirroring behaviors, which can lead to the individual building rapport with others. Mirroring is a subconscious replication of another person's nonverbal signals. Just remember, subconscious. This concept takes place in everyday interactions and often goes unnoticed by both the person enacting the mirroring behaviors as well as the individual who is being mirrored. Okay, you can continue reading that, but I want to go into, let's see, the third paragraph, which says, the display of mirroring often begins as early as infancy. As babies begin to mimic individuals around them and establish connections with particular body movements, the ability to mimic another person's actions allows the infant to establish a sense of empathy and thus begin to understand another person's emotions. The infant continues to establish connections with other individuals' emotions and subsequently mirror their movements. Okay? So, that's what mirroring is. So it's going to happen. All right? Children are going to mimic you, whether you are aware of it or not. So, and that means the good and the bad. Okay? Now, mirroring can also be used as a technique, and we're going to discuss that later.
Yes.
Jonathan is, anyway. So that's mirroring. Now, the other thing is setting an example. John, setting an example.
That's where there's a disconnect, okay? Because and parents miss 90% of the problem because they think, oh, I'm setting an example for my kids. But we've just read on mirroring that you are the example all the time.
Right.
Okay, and just by having these notions that I'm going to set the example. I'm setting the example by teaching them manners and teaching them this. No. Every time you wake up in the morning, you're setting the example.
Exactly.
And that's 90%, because they're going to mimic you.
Yes.
They're going to mirror everything you do because their brain is telling them that's a successful method of survival.
Exactly.
And so this whole idea of parents will tell themselves, "Oh, I'm setting a good example for my kids by some specific action."
Yes.
No, that's only a fraction of what you need to realize that you're doing. Everything that you do, whether you get mad at the dog, whether you get mad at you're working on your car or cooking a meal or washing the dishes, whatever how you act is how they will act. And so that's where, once you know that that's mirroring, once you know that that is what's going on, then your behavior is going to change.
Exactly, because the thing is, the setting an example doesn't work because it's just the conscious aspect of it. Like, for example, if you are naturally an impatient person, okay, you don't have the patience, okay, the child's going to pick up on that, even though you choose certain situations where you're going to say, well, I'm going to force myself to be patient in this situation to teach him to be patient. But that may not be picked up because subconsciously on all the other times you're impatient.
That's right.
So
one of the things, if you catch yourself setting a bad example, and you know that you're even if your child is not in the room, if they hear you, sometimes you have to go to your child and say, you know what, I was mad because something didn't come out of the laundry right, and I was frustrated, and I was angry, and so I apologize. I shouldn't have acted like that.
right.
And so you're apologizing for your bad behavior towards something that really didn't even concern them.
Yeah.
But guess what that teaches them? That teaches them that you are an honorable person, and you are open. Okay? You want them to be a genuine person, then you develop that in yourself. And then, see, once you develop yourself as a person, then you can say, if they start having bad, I hate to use the term bad behavior, but if they start having negative behavior, you can say, do I do that? And they'll say no, or say, well, you do that sometimes. They say, well, what do I do in those cases? Do I apologize for how bad I am? Then it gives you some currency to say, even though I make a mistake, this is what I do to remedy this, and I'm open to you because I'm accountable to you as your mentor, as your teacher in life, to prepare you to be an adult.
Exactly.
And so anyway.
And so what he discussed, that's what peaceful parenting is, and that's why it's so important, because it gives you the tools, okay, to be able to raise your child. And so what is peaceful parenting? That is a good one. You can't do peaceful parenting without acquiring self-knowledge.
And that's
okay. And sorry, let me hit back to what you were saying on acquiring self-knowledge. And that also includes that feedback. It's okay, like you were asking a child for feedback. How am I doing? Is there something I did that made you feel a certain way? That feedback, because if there's a lot of stuff that you don't know about yourself and you're not aware of, there's some things that you haven't fixed, it's okay to ask your child for that feedback. Was I too impatient with you? Was I too harsh with you? And they'll tell you, and that's why self-parenting is a good thing. Peaceful parenting and acquiring self-knowledge is a good thing.
Well, you said self-parenting, and that's an interesting statement, because you're actually parenting yourself, because a lot of times we come from
dysfunctional families.
We come from dysfunction.
Exactly.
And we have to undo that dysfunction. It's like the buttons that are installed within us.
Because we weren't peacefully raised ourselves, now we have to reprogram ourselves and incorporate that peaceful parenting onto ourselves.
Right.
So that we can pass that to our child.
Correct. And I think that's a very good point that you made.
We have to have knowledge of your own childhood dysfunction, okay? For example, why am I so impatient? Okay, you have to analyze that. What happened in your childhood, whatever. Um, you have to uninstall previously installed buttons.
Right.
Okay, why you get triggered with certain things. You have to learn about that, so
Mm-hmm.
you can uninstall them.
And I guess that brings us
Listening.
to reflective listening.
Yes, but first of all, active listening. We have to listen. We have to the skill of listening. You have to be a good listener to your child.
Right. And that's and active listening is you look when they're talking to you, you look them in the eye,
Yeah,
right? And you allow them to finish and you acknowledge what they're saying.
exactly. Because
Okay.
they feel it's how they feel important.
Right. And so especially if they feel like they have accomplished something and they come to you. Okay? Because if we constantly say, oh, that's nice, and go on about our day.
That's not
No.
paying attention to somebody.
No, and I can see how some people might push back and say, well, I'm really busy and everything. I totally get that.
Yep.
Okay, I totally get that. It happens sometimes.
But you gotta explain that.
Yes.
You gotta explain it to the kid. Hey, I really want to give you 100% of my attention because I know that's what you would rather have me do.
Correct.
Okay, I do have to take care of things right now, but I tell you what, in 30 minutes or so, when I'm done with this task, I'll go back to you and I'll give you 100% of my attention.
And not just that. Once you do go back, and you have to do that. You have to go. Once you say that I will do this, you do that, and you go back to them and say, show me that thing you were going to show me.
Yes.
Okay, and then you are totally engaged at that point. And you let them, and you ask them questions, and you ask them to say, oh, well, that's really amazing. How did you put this together over here? What is this for? And you ask them, well, what color did you use here? And you fully engage them. So it's like, yes, they were busy, but they really did their best to to make it up to me.
Exactly.
And so that's integrity.
Exactly.
And so they will mirror that back to you.
So going back to remember what I mentioned about mirroring, that you can also use it as a technique. Okay, there's something called reflective listening.
Right.
So Jonathan's gonna talk about that.
And this is used in counseling also, and basically, it's a model. I'll just read a portion here. It's a communication strategy involved in 2 steps: seeking to understand the speaker's idea, and then offering the idea back to the speaker to confirm the idea that it has been understood correctly. It attempts to reconstruct what the client is thinking and feeling, and basically it's from the Rogerian model, Carl Rogers, okay, a school of client-centered therapy. And I studied him in college many years ago. But the most important thing as far as with children is when they start saying, I felt a little this, I felt like, that I was scared having this nightmare I had and everything. And you say, well, tell me about it. And they tell you the story. So what you do is you go back and tell them exactly what they told you. In other words, you paraphrase what they say, and then they say, yes, that's exactly what happened. And even, like, let's say they're riding their bike outside and they crash, or they do something amazing, some trick on a bicycle, and they come in and tell you. You can use the same reflective listening also. And they say, oh, I did this. And you say, wow, that must have been interesting. And you ask them about it, and then they tell you about it, and then you paraphrase it back to them. And it's like it makes the connection to the child, to where they say, this person is fully engaged in what I'm saying, and they can understand it. Now, of course, don't make it campy. right? Because that's not genuine
That's
either.
not genuine. Yes.
So anyway, that's a little bit of a reflective listening of what that is, and it's a very powerful tool, so that they can understand that you understand.
So basically, again, to wrap it up, like I said, as homeschooling is not enough. You have to be a peaceful parent, and practice peaceful parenting to be able to raise a genuine child. You have to become a genuine person yourself before you can raise a child to be genuine.
So that means is peaceful parenting not just changes the child, but it's also you working on yourself.
Correct.
So
Yes. And there you go.
there you go.
So
Thanks,
anyway,
guys.
I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, bye.